One of South Africa's iconic moments. An emotional Archbishop Desmond Tutu on the first day of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission as ordinary people began to unburden themselves. The TRC gave an opportunity to ordinary South Africans like these to take center stage and share the stories of sacrificing and suffering. As South Africa transitioned from an authoritarian government, the enlightened Nelson Mandela established the Truth Commission in one of his first tasks as the country's democratically elected president. At the heart of the Mandela administration was to reunite a divided society and, importantly, to compile a full objective record of the effects of apartheid. The Commission was tasked with investigating apartheid violations between 1960 and 1994 and to provide reparations to victims and their families. And for this, Mandela appointed celebrated and respected activist priest Desmond Tutu to chair the commission.
By any provision of promotion.
I'm not sure that anybody else in our country would have been able to manage that role, because almost on a daily basis you were confronted not only by the horrors of the atrocities that had taken place in our country, but also this extraordinary sense of humility on the part of most victims, and the fact that all they were looking for was information about what had happened to loved ones. And it's a very difficult issue for the commissioners, because the Archbishop truly believed in this notion of forgiveness and reconciliation.
Led by Tutu, the commission had the often painful stories of over 20,000 South Africans over a period of 2 years. The South African process was a typical example of how contemporary societies were moving away from retributions and war tribunals for reconciliation and restorative justice. Desmond Tutu's leadership is credited with taking both the victims and perpetrators on the journey of reconciliation, an important quality, according to this support group for political prisoners and victims of apartheid.
If we're all going to be citizens of one country, it's not just expected of black victims to forgive with no engagement on what exactly happened to you and what can you do to make this right. How Archbishop Tutu managed the TRC was that there were some remarkable experiences of people saying, you know, tell me exactly how you killed my son, and then being like hugging each other. Those were very visual images of forgiveness, but that's the beginning of a journey. It's not the end of a journey.
I think they are just magnificent people. One would have thought that they would have been consumed by bitterness and anger, but they've been amazing in bearing their pain, but being willing to be instruments of forgiveness and reconciliation. I think, that we will discover one day just how much we owe to them.
Despite these challenges, for many, it was Desmond Tutu's Christian teachings and the image of him in his religious flowing gown that gave the victims some sort of comfort.
But I realized very early on in the life of the Commission that for the victims who were mainly Christian and deeply Christian, for South Africans it was a comforting thing having the Archbishop sit there in his robes. And, you know, it's the sense of extraordinary humanity he had, with which he could embrace the stories of victims which were very painful, and he could offer them support just by being there. So I would say his presence was quite critical.
South Africa's Truth Commission has since been mirrored across the world, most notably in Sierra Leone, which was beset by a civil war throughout the 90s, and Peru, which went through 2 decades of military regimes and violent radical reformist groups. Much credit to this is given to Desmond Tutu for chairing the Truth Commission, which despite its flaws was generally regarded as successful. And for this, Desmond Tutu was named Newsmaker of the Year in 1998 and became the global face of forgiveness, on which South Africa's Rainbow Nation, a phrase he coined, was built.